Welcome to the AusComX Show. Woo! I am Shane, or Sis as people know me, and this is Shaden. Oh, wrong way, that way.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I will just quickly go through a few things before we start. Tomorrow, Let's Make a Comic Book is having a break just for this week. So don't worry, it'll be back next week. Friday night's drink and draw. The theme is Dazzler. So get your Dazzlers in. And just so everyone remembers, this is where you go to submit your art. The comx.show/art. And that's a form there to send in your art. And I will be doing Long Shot on Saturday for the amateur hour. And just a bit of a warning, over the next couple of weeks, we might be a little bit, few mistakes here and there because we are swapping streaming programs. Because there's been a big change in the way this one works, its pricing structure. So they can go get stuffed, quite frankly. And yeah. But that's not what this show's about. This show is about Peter Wilson. So let's get our butts in gear and get over to Peter.
Peter, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, all the way from the East Coast, I believe. It's such a pleasure to have you on. First and foremost, I had such a pleasure reading Foes. For those who don't know, Foes is all about aliens, demons, and donuts. And quite simply, it's just an absolute pleasure to read. It was so easy on the eyes. And the way that you write is just so witty. So for everyone who probably isn't familiar with yourself, can you give us like a quick introduction of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a graphic designer by trade. Hello, Nick. I had, before good old Sis came into my life, I had two self-published, very short comics under my belt, Crimson and Rascal, which was a superhero parody. Really where I cut my teeth figuring out how to make comics. And as I was making them, I really started to explore the indie scene and started reading who else was out there, started following the right people. And then lockdown happened. And about halfway through that, good old Sis reached out and said, hey, I'm doing this thing. It's a ComX network. And I was like, that's not a thing. I haven't heard of that. He's like, I want you to join. And I didn't think much of it until the next day I Googled it and checked it out and realized, how did you get the Dave Dye? How did you get Spedsy? How did you get all these people? Surely he's confused me for a real artist. And I would have left it there out of insecurity, but he persisted and said, why haven't you signed up yet? Here's the form. You're just as good as these guys. And he was a big champion of my work. Where the comics calendar came out, and that's where Foes made their first debut. Mm-hmm. And then the Donut Battle, which you can see here, wrong side, originally ran in ComX Presents 1 through 4. I believe there's an intermission in issue 3, though. And yeah, here we are, working away. I'm currently working on issue 2 at the moment.
Ooh.
And working on the second ComX calendar.
Amazing, amazing. So you've definitely been quite busy recently. I guess diving into this little comic creation of yours, it's just full of color and full of character. Can you give us a little bit of an elevator pitch of what it is about?
So the idea is these two monsters, one demon, one alien, Dementus and Zero, have come to take over Earth, come to do various nefarious deeds, but constantly get in each other's way. So in this instance, they've both been summoned to take over the world. And they both probably could have been pretty successful, but by pure happenstance, they wander into the same coffee shop, both reach for the same donut, and they can't move past it. They're both as petty as they are powerful. So the battle just keeps escalating. At any point they could walk away, they refuse. There's no higher message. It is just two petty beings who can't let go of a grudge.
It's so fantastic as well. It's so well paced as well. It's just such an easy read, and it's so enjoyable and so easily digestible as well. It was a real pleasure to read, and it was just really refreshing as well. A lot of the stuff that I've been reading has been quite dense in what it's about. So reading this was just a real breath of fresh air. So yeah, congratulations to you for releasing this as well. Simply, the way I would describe your writing and your art style is merely just whimsical, full of character, and quite honestly, very witty. But I want to hear how you would personally describe your style.
A lot of the times, to get sort of inspired for foes, I'll look at things that are much more sincere and not comedy.
Really?
Absolutely. I've said before, one of my favorite things is those really bad documentaries on the paranormal you see on YouTube, like My House is Haunted, I Was Abducted. It's watching those, and I feel bad for them because they are totally sincere. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that they believe they're experiencing something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is a level of humor to it. I once watched an Australian documentary on UFOs, and this man claimed that UFOs always followed him. He said, look, there's one now. The camera spins. Oh, no, it's ducked behind a cloud. It's like, okay, and I realized if you put that in a comic, that would just be really funny. I can't make that serious. But the sincerity of just a really bizarre premise, but executed with total conviction, is something I really enjoy. And also just my love of sort of sci-fi and horror films really informed it. It's kind of your basic stress relief, you know. I was the kid, I wasn't allowed to watch horror films, so I'd go through Video Easy and look at the DVD covers of all this horrific imagery. Your mind conjures up its own story, then years later you actually watch it and go, that was nothing. That's embarrassing. I was really scared of Chucky for a long time.
Yeah.
And that kind of follows through with foes. I really like the horror imagery, but then the letdown, if you actually met Dementors, he'd be scary for about 2 seconds. And then he'd go over his own tail, or he'd ask you for, $10 or something very underwhelming. So maybe it was a coping mechanism. Scared, look how dumb these monsters are.
No, I love Dementors. He's such a cute character, which I think is just so contrasting with what you've just said. It's such a contrast of what inspired you to what you've produced, and I think you've implemented it in such a fun way. So that's a huge credit to yourself as a creator. I think. I guess kind of deep diving into a little bit more of your background. How long have you been drawing for?
Oh, a long time now. I used to draw and write sort of on and off. I'd go through spurts through high school, early 20s, where I'd do nothing but draw for a week. It was always very terrible. And then I'd leave it. I didn't really start pursuing it and doing it constantly every day. Probably about 10, 15 years ago now. I've told this story before, but I fractured my spine in a motorbike accident.
Oh, no.
So there really wasn't much I could do. For about 2 weeks, it was just lying flat. Particularly after the surgery, I wasn't allowed to do much. But drawing, I could do. So there wasn't much else to do except draw, take painkiller, watch daytime TV, and then immediately go back to drawing because daytime TV is terrible. And I'm also very claustrophobic by nature, so having to lie still and dead still really played havoc with my mind. So drawing was an escape. And every time I finished a drawing, there was no reason to go back and go, well, I'll make it better because what else have I got on today? And it just kept going and going. And that's when I started doing the first few drafts for Crimson and Rascal. And realizing I love comics, I've always read comics, why can't I do my own? At the end of it, I'll have all this draw, but I'll have a product as well.
Yeah. Wow, that's so inspiring. I didn't know that story, actually. And the fact that you've come from this and have produced something of this magnitude, I guess you could say. I think there's a huge credit to you, and that's super inspiring. I guess continuing on the conversation of how you started drawing, what would you say some of your strengths are in your creative skill set?
I think I spend a lot of time on the script before I start drawing. So I think I'm quite good at making sure that what I draw relates to the story.
Okay.
And reflects hopefully what the reader should be feeling as they're reading it. There can be a tendency to start with drawing what's just cool and the story comes second. Sometimes that works perfectly, but that just doesn't work. I think that the story can suffer, it can stagnate. I think pacing can be off if you do that. And, you know, Todd McFarlane famously said he could sell a comic that looks cool, but if it's written well, it's harder. But yeah. I disagree with that. I think you can do both.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pretty ballsy. I disagree, Todd McFarlane. Who are you?
No, I think you've done that perfectly as well in Foes. Your characters are just full of, I don't know, they're just so fun. And your writing is just paired so well with it as well. It's just a really, really nice balance of both. So yeah, kudos to you. Having said that, are there any particular skills that you're currently learning or improving at the moment?
I feel the big one is always anatomy, especially for comic artists. Even for someone with a very cartoony style like me, you never want to start looking samey. You don't want to start realizing, oh, I've drawn the same expression several times, or I'm using stock poses. You know, you want to keep pushing it and having fun and, you know, practicing your foreshortening. That's definitely something I'm always trying to work on more.
Absolutely. There are actually quite a few moments in Foes that I noticed that you really did push that, and you've executed it perfectly as well. Thank you. So yeah, good on you for constantly doing that. I think anatomy is always a constant uphill battle with a lot of artists. I definitely can vouch that for myself. So yeah, good on you for constantly improving that particular skill set. Another question I'm really interested in is what particular medium do you prefer to work in?
Digital.
Digital, yeah.
When I first started with my back, it was sketching, and when I did design at TAFE, there was a big emphasis on traditional media, which I think really helped. I think it's good to have a background. I think it's good to practice that, even if you don't feel you're good at it or don't enjoy it. But these days, I think it's so much quicker. I used to, for half of Donut Battle, I used the trackpad on my Mac.
Really?
Yeah. I would draw in pencil, take a photo of it, put it in Illustrator, and trace it with that. So by the end of it, my fingers would be like that.
Wow.
And it wasn't until someone pointed out to me, you know, that's really stupid. I was like, well, how else do you do it? And he said, my good friend Robbie Don sat me down and showed me how to use a tablet. So started using a tablet, and now I've recently upgraded to the iPad, so much simpler.
Ooh, nice.
The fact that it's streamlined. Issue 2 is coming along so much quicker because I can just sit down anywhere, anytime, and batch out a quick panel.
Right?
It's really hard to go back.
Yeah, I use the exact same method for No Man's Land. I used to do it I used to do like the inking traditionally, and then I'd color it digitally in Photoshop, but now it's just all streamlined through iPad. So I get it. But yeah, the fact that you've come from like from doing it on a trackpad to this now, I think that's a huge development. That's super cool. I guess talking about like more about comics and whatnot, I'm interested to hear what you like to read. What kind of comics have inspired you?
Oh, I'm a huge reader. If it looks vaguely interesting in comic form, I'll read it. For a long time, I collected DC, primarily Batman.
Yeah.
So I think I've got like 700, some ridiculous number of Batman comics and Batman-related comics. And then I discovered a reprint of Ninja Turtles 1 by Mirage came out. I thought, Ninja Turtles, that's cool. I've heard good things about this comic, that it's nothing like the cartoon. I'll pick it up. And it just blew my mind that this was just two dudes in a lounge room. And that really woke me up to like, okay, let's get past the mainstream. What else is out there? So I just started consuming anything and everything. My day job is a support worker for disabilities.
Oh, there you go.
And the hours can be very odd. You know, you can do one from 7 till 9 in the morning, then you've got nothing till 3 to 5 the afternoon. So I'd go to the library rather than trek all the way home, and they've just started to get awesome graphic novel selections. So if you haven't been to your local library, I urge you to check it out. You can get some great reading done. And I would make a point to pick the weirdest or things I wouldn't really normally read. You know, they had the first 50 issues of Avengers ever printed in a big omnibus. I had never read Marvel. I had never read Golden Age, but by the end of it, I was hooked. I loved it. Stuff from Japan. That's how I discovered Junji Ito. If it looked good, I read it. So these days, I tend to gravitate towards the more cartoony stuff. Scotty Young, his Fairyland series is just hysterically funny. Old back issues of The Tick, I adore.
Oh, nice.
They're so fun. Ninja Turtles, again, have rebooted with issue 1, so I've jumped back on that bandwagon. Friend of ComX, Lauren Marshall, did a variant for issue 1. Get one, it's amazing. What else? Where's my pile? I've got a pile of stuff. I've got a pile of old Wizard magazines I've been reading.
Oh my God.
That's good. What's this one?
Sounds like you've got such a plethora of different pieces of inspiration. It's
My
nice to
room
know.
is really climbable. There's just piles of comics everywhere.
That's just fantastic to hear, I think.
You know, here's a random selection from what's near me. This is some random slave labor graphic novel.
Wow.
I think it's about a couple. There's a Tank Girl.
Oh,
nice.
This is the Art of the Lion King.
Oh, awesome.
That was a good find.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Here's a random collection of old ads from Golden Age comics. You know, X-Ray Specs.
Wow.
It's just all piled up. It's a bit worrying. I should sort it somehow. But yeah, so anything and everything I try to read.
That's
Even
awesome.
if I don't particularly like it, it's a good exercise to read something and try and think of something that it did do well.
Absolutely. I think there's definitely an advantage at doing that, because you probably, having picked up something that you wouldn't normally read, you'd probably be inspired by things that you didn't even think of.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's a great habit to pick up as well.
Yeah.
Giving people that you don't, well, I don't, up and coming emerging artists a chance, because you never know what you're going to find. But yeah, that's awesome. I guess delving into more of the meaty questions about foes, I want to know how long this project took for you.
Oh, a long one. The first 8 pages existed in some form for a long time. There was no script. It was almost like storyboards,
Wow.
which is why the first couple of pages have almost no dialogue. It's just slowly setting the pace and setting up the weird characters. But then it started to really meander, and it was getting out of control, and I was redoing it and redrawing it, and then I just left it. It was becoming overwhelming. It wasn't until I was given a deadline with ComX Presents 1 that I really thought, okay, let's structure it. Let's actually let's get this one done. Because it seemed I was really enjoying drawing it. It was just taking too long.
That season is damn good.
So in that, it would have been close to 3 years.
Wow.
There was also a big hiatus halfway through, which I think by Presents 3, my partner got diagnosed with breast cancer and obviously had to take a lot of time off. She's much better now. She's totally fine now. She's doing great.
That's a relief to hear.
And look, it's what solidified my love of ComX and my love of this community is how everyone banded together. Not to say, well, can you hurry up and finish it, but to actually get my pages done for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really awesome. Issue 3.
I had done some random 3-page zines for foes, just for fun, just to sort of practice drawing them. And it was Shane's idea to get those pages, get people to color them and print them for me. So I didn't have to see this. And yeah, that's how that got done. Here's an example of one of them.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Kickstarter.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
fantastic.
essentially the same story. Dementor's trying to get a victim, but Zero's already had dibs on them.
Yeah.
So there's an alien version and a demon version.
That's phenomenal. That's so cool to see where it's come from to where it is now as well. But yeah, that's a huge credit to you, Peter. That's some serious dedication to getting this project out. Congratulations to you.
It was getting good feedback helps too. I think you can. It's cool to say you got it done in your own time, but I wouldn't have if people were assuring me that they liked it and they wanted to read it. So
absolutely, and what a pleasure it is to read as well.
Oh,
I guess reading it as well. I came across a few Easter eggs as well, which I thought was really funny. You've mentioned that you've worked on ComX Presents. It also states that you worked on Vamoose. And your first series, Crimson and Rascal. But one of the Easter eggs in there was that you have Sidrus Station in one of the scenes. And I thought that was a great little nod to the comics, comic Sidrus. So I thought that was fantastic to see.
Yeah.
And like just
really got a cameo.
Yeah, and it's just fantastic.
I was going to draw them in at one point.
Oh, amazing.
But I thought it would be a bit too distracting, but who knows? Maybe in future issues that could happen.
Maybe. But there's just such a great contrast, and it just kind of goes to show how well knit together the community is as well. Yeah. I love the way you write as well, and how that the characters describe a UFO as a giant frisbee. I love the way that the aliens pronounce, or how you write Earth is URF. I love the way that it's spelled. I love the fact that the train, the announcement in the train scene, it says train departing. If you missed it, too bad. And how they describe that vessel of vehicle, I guess you could say, is a metal worm. I think it was just really witty and really fun to read. Another
really
thing that
to take a lot of just average, boring stuff and thinking, how would a monster who has no context for what he's seeing, even if he's a super genius alien, if he hadn't seen a train before, he might think, oh, maybe it is a worm. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what things do. And then Dementus, already pretty dumb, doesn't know most things. So I think Dementus would get most Earth references and pop culture references, but he's still pretty dumb. So he's still wrong.
It would have been so fun to write these characters. It definitely looked like it was. And I think you've done it really well as well. I also liked the fact on page 3, you drew the alien, and it looked like that picture of the real alien from Congress in America a few years ago. Shane, do you have the image of what Peter did?
We spot him.
One of these don't look like the other. Can you give some context behind this image for those who don't know?
It was a bunch of Air Force dudes were asking the government to give clarification on UFOs that they had all claimed to have seen. And basically they wanted a bunch of stuff declassified. They wanted to know if they were in danger, not necessarily aliens, just UFOs. It could have been Russian spies, it could have been Chinese spies, it could have just been experimental stuff. But the media really took to the UFO angle. And for the first time, I could really get topical. And so I took a screenshot and drew my boy in there.
Nice.
I didn't like being talked about.
I love this so much. Awesome. It's such a good meme as well. You've done it well. You did it so well. But like, yeah, just on page 3, it just looks like the real alien. It's just like laying there. And I just couldn't help it.
There's the Roswell autopsy video, alien autopsy video. Is where I got this expression from.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
I tried to go with a real classic alien demon iconography.
Yeah.
But the followers only have the very broad stuff, tarot cards, you can see there. Crop circles. So they don't really know what they're getting into. That Men in Black photo is also taken from an actual security cam footage of what people claim to be the real Men in Black.
Yeah.
They claim to see a UFO, a creepy 7-foot dude in a trench coat said you didn't see anything. Then stole all his files and walked off. It's cool to find those real life stories and sort of pepper them in.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it kind of goes back to what inspired you previously, what we were talking about. It's just nice to see it all sprinkled in, I guess, and executed beautifully. I guess kind of talking more about your process, you mentioned a little bit about your storyboards and how you didn't work off a script for a little while there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process and how you work?
Yeah, that was a one-off because Crimson and Rascal was so heavily scripted. And I realized I'd probably spent too much time worrying about those scripts and layouts. And Foes came to me very visually. All my other ideas sort of come to me in a what-if sentence. But Foes, it was, I saw the characters and I saw the city straight away. And then the story came second, even though Donut Bottle admittedly is a very thin story. Potential other stories came very quickly. The characters came so quickly and they work so well together because they're opposites, and that's comedy 101. You put two opposites in a room together and they'll either despise each other, but you're going to have a laugh. They might get on, they might not. And just luckily, Demons and Aliens, you get those cliche, the horns, the hoofs, furry legs, forked tongue, total opposite to a big grey bulbous head. So they look totally different. So I started drawing it without a script because I thought, let's just see where it goes. Let's just have fun drawing it. So I started with the city, how I saw it, the creepy building. And I was like, in my mind, I was building up suspense because I knew how they looked and I was really looking forward to drawing them for the first time. And only when I got to about page 8 and I realized I have not made any progress in the plot at all. I'm just drawing cool things that I do. There's probably, each panel you see in the first 8 pages, there's probably 3 different versions of each one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was too much. It was ridiculous. They're great. Always watch them. So I think I found a good medium now where I'll write a script with the gist of what needs to happen. Because ideally at each phase, the script, drawing it, lettering, and editing, you can find a way to keep it fresh and keep it going. You find new things you can add that sort of elevate it that little bit more. And I'm quite happy with the process I've got now. I think it's worked well, especially for issue 2. I think I've got it down a bit finer.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's good to hear. It definitely shows that you had a lot of fun on this project. That's clearly conveyed. Yeah, and I just hope that I'm sure that fun will continue to be conveyed in issue 2, and I can't wait to continue reading about the Donut feud. What is your favorite stage of that process?
Each of them have their own, writing's fun because you're just throwing everything at the wall. That's issue 2 now, here on the side. That's the first page. There's going to be black and white like that, and that's the second page.
That's awesome.
It's going to be a darker story, leaning a little bit more into the horror aspect.
Nice.
But yeah, that's been fun. And there's going to be a second story, which will be color.
Amazing. Oh, cool. What would you say is the most challenging part of that process then?
The hardest part is when you sort of get to the real technical stage. You've got to lay out the panels. You got to make sure everything looks good. You got to make sure because you get to some and you realize you've got this big arrival, big spooky moment, and it's in a tiny panel. It doesn't work. Sometimes you realize you've given yourself too much. And the joke lands in one panel. You don't need to make it a whole page build up. Sometimes that's funny, but you don't have to. Editing's always hard when you have to go back with a critical eye. Or even when you're inking for the first time and you realize, wow, these are rubbish, even though they are roughs and they are allowed to be rough and unpolished.
Yeah, absolutely.
It occasionally gets disheartening when you realize, oh man, I do suck. But then you sort of look back and you see the whole thing, not just the trees, but the whole forest. And you're like, oh no, it's coming together. It's okay.
Yeah, it's those moments where you pull back and you look at the entire picture.
Exactly.
I guess some artists, we tend to look at all the details and tend to miss the bigger picture. And it's not until you look at the bigger picture, you're like, oh, wow, look how far I've come and look what I've created. So yeah, I definitely resonate with that. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Was there anyone who helped you along the way in creating Foes?
Yeah, quite a few. Like as I mentioned before, Shane was the one that really kept it going and, didn't give me time to doubt myself. Really appreciate him for that. My partner Jess is amazing at going, it's 3 a.m. That building doesn't need street lights. Leave it and go to bed. Well, when I wake up with a migraine the next day, she goes, that's on you because you stared at a screen all night instead of sleeping.
Oh, dear.
She's also very good at saying, she won't coddle me. She won't say, this looks amazing. She goes, this looks amazing, but you don't need it. Because the story's immediately slowed down. And she's always right. And it's really good
awesome.
that it's on objective. It's awesome to get that ego boost. And you do need encouragement and positive vibes, but you also need someone who's going to give you the truth.
Yeah.
Your art.
Yeah. To have a good balance of both. Yeah.
And she's very good at delivering critiques like that. That's also an art in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's amazing.
My mum's super creative as well. She's she works as no tech. She paints in her spare time and makes jewelry and does a bit of everything. But it was never enough, like, just to draw. Just to be talented and creative was fine, but that's not what impressed her. It was making time to do it every day and actually progressing, working hard at it is what she always drove home. It took me a while to learn that, but once I got it, I realized I should have been listening. You should always listen to your mum. They always know that.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
I definitely think I read that in the first few pages of Foes. You had like a list of people that you wanted to thank. And then I think at the very end of the book as well, you had just a huge wave of support of so many local artists. I couldn't count how many there were, but there were so many names at the back of the book. And it was just fantastic to see that everybody really came together to support this project for you. So massive shout out. Yeah.
I had these trading cards made for the Kickstarter, and so many amazing artists contributed.
Oh, yeah.
But so many great names. And look, there's yourself.
It was definitely an honor working on this project as well and being part of it. It was
unbelievable, the outpouring of people who supported it and were asking me, when is it ready? When I woke up to 3 messages saying, you got projects we love, did you know? So, it was really great.
I think it was just a fantastic example of what the comics community can do as well. Yeah, and it was just really wholesome to see everyone getting behind yourself. I think everybody can agree when I say that you're very much a loved artist amongst the community. So it was fantastic to see this project finally come to fruition. I guess we're kind of getting onto the tail end of the interview. So these are some really like deep dive questions that I really enjoy asking. Yeah. Other than Foes 2, are there any other projects on the horizon, or is it just Foes 2 that you're focusing on?
Really just Foes 2 at the moment. I did some lettering for Lee Chalker on his hustle.
Yep.
I did the sort of editing and lettering on that. Really fun work. We were together on another ComX show promoting that. Yep. And that was fun.
Yep.
That was a great experience. Really, it's not always easy working with someone. Like, just because you get along with them personally doesn't always mean you'll do a good comic together. For whatever reason, we just clicked and it came together really well.
Absolutely, yeah. I remember
me and Robbie will be doing another few pages for the next Vamoose if Spedsy's still doing that. We've made all the issues before so far. And that's always, I tend to write, he does the art.
Yep.
And there. But no, pretty empty docket at the moment, just working on the comics calendar.
Yep.
And whatever Shane gives me.
Right. Well, but otherwise, there's enough space for you to really focus in on Foes 2 that I'm sure everybody is really excited to finally get as well after this amazing debut as well of Foes. I guess another great question I like to ask artists on this show, I think it's really good I guess suggestions for fellow artists that may be watching tonight as well is how you overcome creative block, if ever you come across it.
A creative block is usually a sign you need a break. It doesn't have to be a big one. And luckily in comics, depending on how much you do, there's always another job. So if you can't get a good picture going, you just can't draw. Luckily, there's always a bit of writing you have to do, or a bit of editing. So you can always jump ship and do something else. If I can't draw, I can do a bit of inking for another panel I've done. And usually that gets the brain working. relaxes you. You're probably overthinking it. Or alternatively, you just got to put down your devices completely and go for a walk. And
Absolutely.
that's also really good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Well said. I think I definitely fall into that category sometimes.
You can't force it. You can't
Yeah.
make it happen. If your brain's saying no, you're only going to stress yourself out by it. Or you'll produce something really bad.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really well said. I definitely get myself into that mental frame where I've been sitting at the desk for too long and I just need to look at something else or switch it up a little bit and think about and focus on something else outside or wherever. So yeah, I think I think a lot of artists do the same as well, which is nice to hear that it's kind of like a common thing to overcome or to help combat a creative block. I really like this question too. What do you wish someone had told you before you started your comic journey?
Do it if you love it, because it's a grind.
It is a grind, yes. Yeah, well said.
There's a big difference between being a comic maker or wanting to be seen as a comic maker. And it's very easy to fall into the trap of making posts about what you're going to do or showing nothing but work in progress shots, because it gives you the same endorphin rush. It gives you that same sense of satisfaction of, look what I've done. But nothing compares to actually finishing the page.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you gotta stay on target with that and be prepared to draw a lot and things that aren't necessarily fun. You got to get perspective right. You got to get some stuff in the background there. You don't always have to go as detailed as I do or some other artists do. You can keep it simple. Potentially be drawing things like toasters and trash cans 7 times from 7 different ways. And if you can deal with that, you're set. You're fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you definitely triggered me when you said background. Backgrounds are like my and I wish somebody had told me that, is that you're gonna need broad backgrounds, because I hate backgrounds. Quite frankly. But yeah, that's it. You've got to be used to drawing things over and over and over and over and not get tired of them. I guess in a way you've got to really love your characters. Nick May, that's a great rule to stand by. Yeah, and you've got to love it, or else there's no other point. Yeah, I agreed. Is there any ultimate comic goal for you in your project? Where do you see this going?
I've got, I think, the next 3 issues of Foes, not so much scripted, but I've got in a list for. I know the story, I know the beats, and I've got vague notes and visuals and sort of scribbles for, I think, about 8 issues. 8 issues after that. Sometimes it's really simple, like, wouldn't it be funny if there was 100 Dementuses and they all died horribly, like Gremlins? And I'll think of a story for that later on. And then sometimes it's full-fledged, beginning, middle, end. Here's what should happen. And sort of each one has its own. Not all of them will look like Donut Battle. Some will be black and white. Some will be grey. Some will be a bit more sketchy. A lot of that is purely to keep myself interested and try new things, and so the reader doesn't think it all looks samey. But ultimately, I think I would like to get to about 10 issues minimum. I think it'd be cool to have 10 and then have that as like a big trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a credit
finale in mind when I get to it. It'd be cool to one day get to that, realize, okay, no, I've run out of steam. Let's wrap it up.
But that'd be
that's what we're going for.
Yeah. That would be such an awesome portfolio for you to have as well, like 10 comics under your name, and just Foes as well. That'd be fantastic to see. I definitely want to see that.
The trick is just to focus on the story at the moment, otherwise I get overwhelmed. How much am I going to do?
You don't want to do that. Also, are you taking Foes anywhere, like to markets or events, conventions, etc.?
I recently got into my local comic store, which was cool. Comic Games and Entertainment.
Congratulations.
In Maitland. So that was really cool of him. I didn't know he had followed the Kickstarter, but I've bought enough comics of him to like put a deposit on a mortgage of a house. So I'm glad he did. And he was really excited when he said, "Hey, Foes did well," and I was like, "How do you know Foes? How do you know who I am?" And he's like, "You dropped a card. Apparently, I dropped one of my cards, and he followed it, which is really awesome of him."
Yeah.
So he had a few issues up on his shelf, and I haven't done a con in a while. I should get to. I managed to sell a few at a local pop band, which was a con here at Lake Macquarie Libraries.
Amazing.
And that was, I did a talk on cartoon character design, and they gave me a chance to quickly say, and I'm selling comics in that corner.
Amazing.
People did. It's always flattering when kids buy your comics because it's harder for kids to know what they're going to spend their pocket money on. So, if they decide, I want this comic, you must have struck a chord.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any particular conventions that you would like to table at in the future, perhaps?
I'd like to do some of those smaller ones.
Yeah.
I feel there's sort of more of an exciting community there. The people that go to the smaller ones are there really because they love it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And doing Supernova and the big ones, the Comic Cons, they're fun, but it's staggering how many times I heard, I don't really like comics from passerbys. And what I want to say is, if it wasn't for comics, you wouldn't be here. So, and then I realized I look like an old grumpy man going, bloody kids. No respect. Luckily, I was playing with the star, and he's so talented that people overlooked it.
But I guess, I definitely agree with you. The smaller ones, people really do come for that reason. So that's why I particularly love going to those ones. I know for a fact, Peter, that Adelaide would love to have you. Hopefully in the near future, Paper Cuts will be back up and running.
That would be very cool.
And I would love to see Foes there. And I'm sure a lot of other people from Adelaide in the comic community would love to see you there too. So maybe that could be something on your radar. You never know.
Oh, love my Adelaideans.
They love you too, Peter. They love you too. I guess we're kind of getting into the tail end of our interview. Some of these questions, again, are some of my favorite ones. What do you think the Aussie indie comic scene needs more of?
I think we've got so much talent at the moment. It's crazy to me that we're not more well known. When I see some of the art that my fellow comic creators are doing, to me they should be as every bit as famous as the mainstream dudes. I think what we just need that one foot in the door. That one thing. It's like back in the day, it was news agency distribution.
Yeah.
God knows how hard Sis works at getting us out there. He's tireless. What we just need that one mainstream thing, and then we can say we're actually too cool for the mainstream thing. We feel like a Kurt Cobain. Like, actually, corporate distribution sucks, but I guess we'll do it. We never needed it. So we can still hold on to our indie cred.
Yeah, absolutely. No, nice. Well said. Yeah. That's the dream. That's the dream that we're all working towards. What do you think?
Oh, what happened?
Oh. Well, what do you think?
I think.
Oh no, we haven't lost it. We might have lost it totally.
Am I back?
Oh, there you are.
There you are.
I don't know the questions.
I think we've got a bit of a windstorm here in Adelaide, so it's probably blown me off the Wi-Fi. For those who don't know, I hotspot my everything in my studio to my phone, and my phone only gets full coverage in the window behind me, and that's the only place that you get full coverage. So apologies for that. When it's a bit stormy here in Adelaide. Optus doesn't really deliver to Birdwood. What I was going to say, what do you think the Aussie comic scene does well at?
I think community is a big one. We're all big fans of comics. So there's always a lot of hype when someone says, I'm doing a new comic. There's always a lot of sincere, awesome, I want to see that. And I think that's rad. Going to the bigger cons and actually meeting people in person, everyone's so excited to actually meet each other.
Yeah, that's another. Very true.
Really
very
cool.
True.
Very true.
And Scissors signing autographs, and it's huge. And that's really exciting to be like, oh, cool. This dude's shorter than I thought, or this dude, this dude's a lot louder in person, and that's really exciting in itself. So I think community is a big one. Whenever a newcomer comes along, I think is a big welcome. I think there is a tendency in a lot of creative fields to sort of covet fame or I have my position here and I don't want that usurped. So when a newcomer comes on, they have to prove themselves. I don't think there's much of that really in comics. There's a lot of awesome, another comic dude, come on in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's rare and it's a real treasure.
Absolutely. I think Shane is a real treasure with everything he does as well. And don't worry, Shane, when you meet me in person, I guarantee I'll be way shorter than you. You're not the only short person in comics, I swear. But yes, I think we owe a lot to Shane and what he's built, especially here at ComX. I think the community here is really strong in that sense, I guess. So definitely an advantage there. Good man, good man.
And it sounds like Nick's expecting me to do even more.
Oh, ComX Con. I like your thinking, Nick May. He's an ideas man. Wouldn't that be cool? That'd be awesome. That'd be so cool.
Shane is not tall.
Although, speaking of tall, Nick, I've met you in person, and you are a big friendly giant. I was slightly shocked when I first met Nick May. I was like, wow, you're really tall, but I'm really short, so I guess you're kind of we got 2 more questions before we wrap up. And the last question that I really like asking is what would you say to someone who's starting their comic journey?
Make sure the idea you have is one that you love.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to be doing a lot of work on it. So you need that to really sustain you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're working with someone, make sure they've got plenty of creative input as well.
Yeah.
Don't be precious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give and take.
Fantastic. No, I like that. I think that's some solid advice as well. I guess it kind of comes back to what we said before. Yes, Nick May is the big friendly Papa Pookie. If you know, you know. I guess when we were drawing characters, you really got to love drawing that character because you're going to be doing a lot. And I guess when you start your comic journey, you're going to be doing comics a lot. So you've really got to enjoy your idea or your concept. So yeah, I think that's really well said. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with starting small either. I know it's very popular to create the next MCU, a big interconnect. You know, this character will then have a spin-off, and I'm going to do 100 issues. Do one shot first. See how you go.
Yeah,
also,
that's great.
Writing discipline.
Yeah. I think that's something that I personally wish I did as well, like bite-sized pieces, and then slowly grew from there. So yeah, I think that's wonderful advice as well. Definitely no shame in starting off small. Exactly. Finally, Peter, where can we see more of your work? Where can we see you?
At the ComX store. You can find all my stuff there. Or you can message me directly if you'd like to see my stuff. I've got digital versions of all my stuff available. And there's a handful of foes left, so get in quick if you want one. Yes, follow that link.
There's the new shop.
And Comic Games and Entertainment in Maitland. I think All-Star Comics as well.
You're everywhere.
I'm very lucky. It's very surreal seeing photos. Hey, I know that book. I'm not used to that level of having my stuff away. I'm used to doing all the sales and mailing and shipping myself. It was really surreal to know that people can buy my stuff and I'm not even involved.
Living the dream, mate. Living the dream. That's awesome. I believe your tag up above is where you can find your artwork on Instagram as well. Yes, so make sure to drop a follow to Peter as well and check out some of his artwork. And check out Foes if you haven't already. It's a real treat.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely enjoyed every single page that I read. And I'm sure you guys did too. But otherwise, Peter, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Absolute pleasure.
Is there anything else to wrap up the show with?
Yes.
Jane's got one.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. I've got nothing.
Okay, sorry. I thought that was directed at me. All I'm going to say is like and subscribe, peoples. It helps the channel. Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Sorry about that. I thought my name was said.
That's okay. And just to recap for latecomers, what shows have we got coming up in the next couple of days?
Tomorrow's show of Let's Make a Comic Book. I always say draw. Is not on, so don't go looking for it. But Friday, Drink and Draw is back, and it is Dazzler. So send in your art to the submit form. That's at ComX.show. There's a form there. And I think that I'm doing Amateur Hour this weekend as well. So, and then back to normal next week with all the shows.
Heck yeah.
And ask me when I'm going to be on his show, Let's Make a Comic. So to answer you, Ed, whenever you want, you let me know.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm under you now.
Good. Oh, what have I done?
Fantastic. Well, otherwise, Peter, thank you so much again for being on the show. And all things about your little demon friend, your alien friend, and the donut that they are fighting against. We'll be back with another show in a fortnight, I believe. But until then, we'll smell you later.
Bye all.
Night all.
Bye.
Check out ComX.cx for all things ComX and find out what ComX is all about. We hope you enjoyed the show.